Learn Japanese history.
We are your navigators, Taro and Hanako.
Welcome back. So today we're diving into a really pivotal moment, a time when Japanese culture, especially religion, really started changing after the capital moved to Heian-kyo.
Exactly. A fascinating period. You'll see a lot of things forming that, well, feel distinctly Japanese later on.
Yeah, this is that era, late 8th to end of the 9th century, sometimes called the Kōnin and Jōgan culture.
That's the one. And it's just so crucial for understanding how Japan kind of forged its own path, culturally and religiously. We'll hit the highlights, give you a good feel for it without getting lost in the weeds.
Okay, sounds good. So kicking things off, there's this huge influence coming from China, right? Tang Dynasty China.
Oh, absolutely huge. You see Tang culture's impact everywhere in Japan at this time. But maybe one of the most interesting areas is how it spurred these new kinds of Buddhism.
Ah, right. New Buddhist movements. And there's some context there with Emperor Kanmu, isn't there? He had some issues.
He did, yeah. Emperor Kanmu was getting, let's say, a bit concerned about how much political influence the big Buddhist temples in Nara had gathered.
Right, like too much power.
Kind of. So much so that when he moved the capital to Heian-kyo, he specifically decided not to bring those powerful Nara temples along.
Wow. Okay. That's a strong message.
Definitely. And that decision, plus the government keeping a closer eye on monks and temples generally, well, it created a space.
A space for something new.
Precisely. For new Buddhist ideas to kind of bubble up and grow, a bit separate from those established Nara schools.
And this is where Saicho and Kukai come in. Big names. You hear them a lot.
The key figures, really, Saicho and Kukai, they both actually started their studies back in Nara, the old center, but they were looking for something more, something different, which led them both to make that pretty risky trip over to Tang, China in 804.
That voyage sounds like a massive turning point, going all the way to China for new ideas.
It really was. They went seeking new forms of Buddhism, and boy, did they find them. Saicho came back and founded the Tendai school.
And Kukai founded Shingon.
Exactly. And both became incredibly influential, shaping Japanese religion for centuries.
So let's talk Tendai first. Saicho gets back, and Emperor Kanmu supports him.
Yes, he gets imperial patronage, which was obviously huge, and the core of his teaching was quite radical for the time, really.
How so?
Well, he taught that everyone, didn't matter who you were, your social status, your abilities, everyone had the potential to reach enlightenment.
Okay, that is different, because the Nara schools were maybe more exclusive.
You could say that. It definitely challenged their way of thinking and their authority. It wasn't just theology, it was social, political. Who gets access to enlightenment?
Right. And Saicho pushed back against them.
Oh, strongly. He wanted to set up a totally new ordination platform, a kaidan, on Mount Hei, completely separate from Nara's control.
Which led to Enrikuji Temple.
That's the one, the base on Mount Hei. It became this massive, incredibly important center for Tendai.
Okay, now Kukai. His path after China was a bit different.
Yeah, somewhat. Kukai managed to get Emperor Saga on his side. He petitioned him and was granted land on Mount Toria to build Kongobuji.
Which is still the heart of Xinguan today, isn't it?
It is a really sacred place. And he was also given Kyogokokuji in Kyoto. That's the temple we know as Toji now.
And Kukai got involved with the state too, didn't he? Doing rituals?
Yes, very much so. He performed these esoteric rituals, Mikyo rituals, which were believed to protect the nation, bring good fortune, that kind of thing.
So more than just a monk.
Oh, much more. He was also a brilliant scholar. He spent a lot of time organizing and explaining all the complex Shingon doctrines, making them systematic. It shows you the kind of dynamic figure he was.
Which brings us nicely to Mikyo itself, esoteric Buddhism. How is it different from, like, regular Buddhism back then?
Good question. So mainstream Buddhism, or Kengyo, mostly focused on, studying the scriptures, following precepts, gradual practice over time.
Learning through text.
Right. Mikyo, esoteric Buddhism, was different. It's centered on Danichi Nyorai, the cosmic Buddha, and this whole universe of other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas connected to him.
Okay. So less about reading and more about connecting directly.
Exactly. The goal was a direct connection. Using secret mantras, special chants, using specific hand gestures called mudras, and using these complex diagrams, mandalas, to visualize that cosmic world.
Right, the mandalas.
Yeah. The idea was that through these secret practices, you could actually become one with the Buddha, body and mind, right here and now. And interestingly, gain benefits in this life too. Health, success, that sort of thing. That's the Genzei Ryaku idea.
Wow, okay. Very different focus. And how did these esoteric ideas catch on? Did Tendai adopt them too?
Well, that's interesting. After Saicho died, Tendai Buddhism itself went through this process called Mikioka. It became more esoteric.
Okay.
Yeah, figures like Enin and Enshin, his successors, really pushed that. So both Tendai and Shingon developed these strong esoteric elements, and both became very popular with the aristocracy. They got a lot of support.
And they got different names, didn't they? Like Tamitsu and...
Daimitsu.
Right.
Right. Tamitsu refers to the Shingon esotericism centered at Toji, Kukai's temple in Kyoto. And Daimitsu is the Tendai version. They developed their own flavors, you could say.
Fascinating how they both went that way. But back to Kukai for a second. You said he was more than just a religious leader.
Oh, way more. He was a real polymath. He was incredibly skilled in Chinese literature, left behind a collection of his writings called the Shoriyoshu.
Okay.
And he was an amazing calligrapher, like truly top tier. He's considered one of the three brushes, the Sanpitsu, along with Emperor Saga himself and another official, Tachibana no Hayanari. They mastered that elegant Tang Chinese style.
Calligraphy, literature. What else? Wasn't there something about education?
Yes. He wasn't just focused on the elite. He founded a school called the Shugei Shuchien.
What was special about it?
It was open to commoners, too, which was pretty forward-thinking. It shows a real commitment to education beyond just the aristocracy.
That's impressive. And wasn't there an engineering story, too? Something about a pond.
Ah, yes. The Mano Pond story. Down in his home province of Sanuki, the furlers were apparently really struggling with drought. Kukai, using his knowledge, maybe some engineering principles he picked up in China, who knows, oversaw the repair or construction of this large irrigation pond.
No way. So Buddhist master, scholar, poet, artist, calligrapher, educator, and civil engineer.
Pretty much. It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? Shows a breadth of talent back then.
Definitely. And this ties into another trend, the huge interest in Chinese literature, generally among the nobles, right?
Huge. It really took off. Even the curriculum at the state university changed. The focus shifted towards Kidendo, studying Chinese history and literature, and away from Myogi-Odo, which was more about traditional Confucian classics. Being good at Chinese poetry and prose became, well, kind of essential for a career in government.
So it wasn't just an art form, it was practical, a key skill for ruling.
Exactly. If you wanted to get ahead, you needed to master Chinese literature.
And the big clans started their own schools.
They did. These Daigaku Besso, like private academies attached to the university system almost. You had the Wake clan's Kubunin, the Fujiwara's Kangakuin, the Tachibana clan's Gakkan-in.
Wow.
Yeah, several powerful families set them up for their kids. They were like dorms, libraries, study centers all rolled into one, giving their students a real leg up.
It really sounds like a golden age for Chinese learning in Japan. Didn't they even compile official poetry collections?
Yes. Several imperial anthologies of Chinese poetry were put together during this time. Things like the Ryonshu, the Bunkushirishu, the Kaikokushu. It shows just how highly valued this skill was.
And this produced some capable officials.
It did. Families that specialized in Kidendo, like the Sugawara clan or the Ono clan, produced some really talented administrators, governors, and scholars. Though that emphasis maybe faded a bit later as the Fujiwara clan started to dominate politics more directly.
Okay, let's shift back to the Buddhism angle. Well, look at the art and buildings. How did Tendai and Shingon being up in the mountains affect things?
That's a great point. Because they weren't building massive state temples on flat city land like in Nara, they had more freedom. The temple layouts had to adapt to the slopes, the trees, the rocks.
More integrated with nature.
You could say that. Moroji Temple is often mentioned as a good example. It's nestled in the mountains.
What's special about Moroji's architecture?
Well, its main hall, the kondo, is relatively simple, fits into the landscape. It originally had this slightly unusual 5x4 bay layout, and it uses bark shingles for the roof hiwarabuki, though I think it's cypress bark now, kokurabuki. And its 5-story pagoda is famously small and elegant, also with that bark roof. It feels very different from the grand scale of earlier temples.
And the statues changed too. You mentioned wooden sculptures.
Yes, there's a real flourishing of wooden sculpture, often carved by the monks themselves as part of their practice. The signature style is called Ichibokuzupuri, carved from a single block of wood, which is technically demanding, you know?
Right.
And stylistically, you often see this distinctive drapery style called Hanpashiki Emon. It looks like rolling waves. The overall feel is often quite solid, powerful, even a bit mystical or mysterious.
Any famous examples?
Oh, definitely. The Yakushin-yorai, the medicine Buddha at Jingoji Temple, is a classic. Or the 11-headed Kōnin statue at Hokaji, both really capture that powerful single-block style.
And we mentioned mandalas earlier for the teachings.
Yeah.
They were actual artworks, too.
Absolutely crucial artworks. Visualizing these complex cosmic diagrams was central to esoteric practice. They map out the world of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And amazingly, some survive.
Like which ones?
The Ryokai mandalas, that's the pair, the Womb World and Diamond World mandalas, you can still see historic versions at both Jingoji and Toji. Incredible pieces.
Wow. And sometimes these sculptures weren't even strictly Buddhist figures, like that Hachiman statue.
Right. The statue of the deity Hachiman in the form of a priest at Yakushiji Temple. It's likely from the later 9th century, still has a lot of his original paint. He was enshrined there as the temple's guardian deity. It's Chinju. It shows this blending of Buddhist and local kami worship.
And it's quite small, isn't it?
Yeah, relatively small, but powerful. And speaking of powerful Yakushi statues, the one at Gungoji is another real masterpiece from this time. Similar feel to the Jingoji one, also single block carving, very serene but intense expression.
This has been great, really painting a picture of that Kōnin and Jōgan era. So maybe we can quickly recap the main takeaways for everyone.
Sure. So we saw that really strong influence from Tang China setting the stage.
Especially for Buddhism.
Exactly. Leading to the rise of Tendai and Shingon, these new esoteric schools founded by Saicho and Kukai with their unique ideas about achieving enlightenment.
And Kukai being this incredible, multi-talented figure, religion, art, literature, even engineering.
Right, don't forget that. Plus, that whole flourishing of Chinese literature studies among the nobles.
Yeah, the poetry collections, the private schools.
And finally, the distinct art and architecture that came with esoteric Buddhism, the mountain temples, the single block sculptures, the mandalas, it all hangs together. You see how that initial Tang influence gets absorbed and transformed into something uniquely Japanese.
And for you listening, especially if you're starting out with Japanese history, why does this period matter so much?
Well, understanding this time really gives you the foundation for so much that comes later in Japanese religion, art, even literature. These specific forms of Buddhism, Tendai and Shingon, became deeply embedded in Japanese culture.
So you see echoes even today.
Absolutely. Their influence on the cultural landscape is undeniable. Getting a handle on this period helps make sense of why certain temples look the way they do, why certain religious ideas are prevalent, and how Japanese culture developed its own distinct flavor.
So, maybe something to think about as you go forward. How did Japan take all this influence from powerful Tang China and end up creating something so, well, so Japanese out of it?
Yeah.
What parts of this era, maybe the ideas of Saicho or Kukai or the art styles, still feel relevant in Japan today?
Definitely worth pondering. Maybe even look up some images of Muroji or those Jingoji statues.
Great suggestion. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.